Our story begins a very, very long time ago. Long before Britain was even called Britain, the Romans arrived. They were magnificent builders and soldiers, but they were also expert moneymakers. They brought with them their own coins, and some of the most special ones were made of pure, shining gold. These coins were called the aureus. Imagine a Roman soldier, far from his home in sunny Italy, holding a heavy gold coin in his hand. It was a little piece of the emperor's power, a symbol of the mighty Roman Empire that now stretched all the way to this damp, green island. These coins were not for buying bread or milk. They were for paying other soldiers or buying very expensive things. They were a sign of immense wealth and importance, a tiny, glittering message from Rome itself. After the Romans packed up and left, Britain entered a period we often call the Dark Ages. But it wasn't entirely dark because gold still shone brightly. The people who lived here, the Anglo-Saxons, started to make their own gold coins. They were inspired by the Roman coins they found, but they made them their own. These early coins were called thrymsas and later sciatus. They were much smaller than the Roman aureus, but they were just as precious. Finding one of these today is like finding a tiny piece of a lost world. They tell us that even in a time of great change and uncertainty, the Anglo-Saxon kings and chieftains understood the power of gold. It was a way to show off, to reward their followers, and to create something beautiful and lasting. These Anglo-Saxon coins were often wonderfully decorated. Some had portraits of kings, though they were quite simple and stylized. Others had mysterious symbols or Christian crosses. Each coin was a miniature work of art, hammered into shape by a skilled craftsman. The designs weren't just for decoration. They were a form of early branding. They told you which king had issued the coin and, therefore, whose authority was behind its value. It was a way for a ruler to stamp their identity on their kingdom, sending their image far and wide on a piece of gleaming metal. It was a clever way to say, "I am in charge here," without having to shout it from the rooftops. So, from the very beginning, gold coins in Britain were special. They were rare, they were beautiful, and they were linked to power. The Romans used them to control their vast empire, and the Anglo-Saxons used them to build their new kingdoms. These early coins laid the foundations for a story that would unfold over centuries. They established gold as the ultimate symbol of wealth and status, a metal fit for emperors and kings. This wasn't just money, this was a statement. The golden journey of Britain's coinage had begun, and its first chapter was already filled with treasure, power, and the echoes of history. Why was gold so incredibly important in these early times? Well, it wasn't just because it was shiny. Gold was, and still is, extremely rare. You couldn't just dig it up in your back garden. Its scarcity made it instantly valuable. If you owned gold, everyone knew you were someone of great importance. A king couldn't pay his best warriors or his most trusted advisors with a cartload of chickens. That would be messy and, frankly, a bit insulting. But a handful of gold coins? That was a different story entirely. It was a payment that was grand, portable, and universally understood as a sign of immense favor and wealth. It was the ultimate status symbol. Think of these early gold coins less as everyday cash and more as royal gifts or diplomatic tools. A king might give a bag of gold coins to another ruler to seal an alliance, or to a powerful bishop to gain the church's support. These weren't commercial transactions in the way we think of them today. They were part of a complex social dance, a way of building relationships and showing respect. The coins themselves were often too valuable for normal trade. You couldn't pop down to the market to buy a loaf of bread with a gold thrymsa. You would probably end up buying the entire bakery and the baker's house too. Gold was for the big stuff: land, loyalty, and power. The value of gold was also tied to its purity and its weight. People knew that gold didn't rust or tarnish like other metals. It had an almost magical permanence. A gold coin buried in the ground for 1,000 years will still come out looking as brilliant as the day it was made. This made it a reliable way to store wealth. In a world without banks, if you were a wealthy lord, burying a pot of gold coins was your version of a savings account. It was a treasure you could trust. This reliability gave people confidence, and confidence is the secret ingredient that makes any form of money work, whether it's a lump of gold or a piece of paper. So, in these early centuries, gold coins carved out a very special niche for themselves. They were the money of the elite. They were used for high-level politics, for rewarding the most loyal followers, and for storing fabulous wealth. Their rarity and beauty meant they carried a mystique that silver and bronze coins just couldn't match. Holding a gold coin was like holding a piece of concentrated power. It represented a direct link to the king or emperor who had issued it. This powerful connection between gold, royalty, and prestige would become a central theme in the story of Britain's coinage for the next 1,000 years. Let's leap forward to the Middle Ages, a time of knights, castles, and ambitious kings. For centuries, England had mostly used silver coins for its trade. Gold coins from Europe sometimes circulated, but there was no official English gold coin. That all changed with King Edward III in the 14th century. Edward was a powerful and warlike king, deeply involved in the 100 Years' War with France. He needed a grand, impressive coin to match his ambitions. His first attempt in 1344 was the gold florin, also known as the double leopard. It was a beautiful coin, but it wasn't quite right. Its value didn't match up neatly with European currencies, making it awkward for merchants. It was a bit of a flop, but Edward III was not a man who gave up easily. Later that very same year he tried again. This time he hit the jackpot. He introduced a new coin called the noble, and it was a masterpiece. The noble was a large, heavy gold coin, worth 6 shillings and 8 pence. Its design was magnificent. On one side, it showed the king himself standing in a ship, holding a sword and a shield. This wasn't just a portrait, it was a powerful piece of propaganda. It symbolized England's growing power at sea and the king's military might. It was a message to the world. England is a force to be reckoned with. The noble was an instant success. Merchants loved it because its value made international trade much easier. It was trusted all across Europe, becoming one of the most important currencies of its time. For the first time, Britain had a gold coin that could compete on the world stage. It was so popular that it was minted for over 150 years by different kings. Each monarch would put their own name on it, but the iconic design of the king in the ship remained. The coin became a symbol of English pride and commercial strength. Owning a noble meant you were part of this exciting new world of international trade and royal power. The success of the noble cemented gold's place at the very top of Britain's monetary system. A quick fact for you. The noble weighed about 7.8 grams, which was a substantial amount of gold for one coin. It was never intended for the common person. It was the currency of wealthy merchants, aristocrats, and the crown itself. Edward III's golden dream had come true. He had created a coin that was not only useful for trade, but also a stunning expression of royal authority. The noble set a new standard for British coinage, combining practicality and powerful patriotic imagery that would influence coin design for centuries to come. As we move into the late 15th century, a new and rather heavenly gold coin appears on the scene. This was the angel. First introduced by King Edward IV in 1465, the angel was a beautiful coin with a very special design and an even more special purpose. On one side, it showed the archangel Michael slaying a dragon. This powerful image of good triumphing over evil was not just a pretty picture. It was a deeply religious symbol that resonated with people in the medieval world. On the other side was a ship, similar to the one on the noble, but this time it carried a large cross and a shield. The coin was a beautiful blend of religious faith and royal power. The angel coin is famous for something quite extraordinary: its connection to a ceremony called the royal touch. For centuries, it was believed that the monarch had a God-given power to heal a skin disease called scrofula, also known as the king's evil. During a special ceremony, the king or queen would touch the sick person to cure them. And what did the patient receive after being touched? You've guessed it, a gold angel coin. The coin was pierced with a hole so it could be worn around the neck as a protective amulet. People believed that as long as they wore the coin, their illness would not return. This ceremonial use made the angel much more than just money. It became a symbol of hope, faith, and the monarch's divine right to rule. Imagine being poor and sick, and then being brought before the king himself, who not only touches you, but also gives you a valuable gold coin as a token of your healing. It must have been an incredibly powerful and memorable experience. Shakespeare even mentions it in his play Macbeth. The coin's design, with the archangel Michael defeating the dragon, a symbol of evil or disease, was perfectly suited for this magical purpose. It was a physical reminder of a supposed miracle. The angel continued to be minted for over 150 years and was used in the royal touch ceremony by Tudor and Stuart monarchs, including Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, and even Charles I. A little fact: the angel initially had the same value as the noble, 6 shillings and 8 pence, but later increased in value. Its weight was around 5.2 grams. The coin's dual role as both currency and a healing charm makes it one of the most fascinating in British history. It shows how coins could be deeply embedded in the cultural and religious life of the nation, representing not just wealth but also divine power and the hope for a cure. For centuries, making coins was a very hands-on job. A craftsman would take a hammer and literally bash a piece of metal between 2 dies to create the design. This was called hammered coinage. The results were often beautiful, but the coins were frequently irregular in shape, and, well, it was easy for naughty people to clip off little bits of precious metal from the edges. But in the 17th century, under King Charles II, everything changed. A new technology arrived from France, the screw press. This was a huge, powerful machine that could mint coins with incredible precision. Out went the hammers, and in came the age of milled, or machine-made, coinage. These new machine-made coins were perfectly round, with sharp, clear designs and even decorated edges. This made them much harder to clip or counterfeit. To celebrate this new era of modern money, a brand new gold coin was introduced in 1663. It was initially intended to be a 20-shilling piece, or £1. However, it was made from gold imported from West Africa by the Royal African Company, whose symbol was an elephant and castle. In honour of the source of its gold, the public soon started calling the new coin the guinea. The name stuck, and it became one of the most famous coins in British history. The guinea had a fascinating life. Because the price of gold kept changing relative to silver, the value of the guinea actually fluctuated. It was officially revalued in 1717 by none other than Sir Isaac Newton, who was master of the mint, at 21 shillings. This slightly odd value is why even today you sometimes hear of posh horse races or art auctions having prizes in guineas. It became the currency of gentlemen, of luxury trade, and of the wealthy elite. You would pay your tailor in shillings, but you might pay for a fine horse or a commissioned portrait in guineas. It was a coin with an air of sophistication and class. The arrival of the guinea and machine milling marked a huge step forward. Coinage was now more secure, more uniform, and more reliable. The guinea, weighing about 8.4 grams, became Britain's most important gold coin for nearly 150 years. It saw Britain through a period of massive change: the growth of empire, the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, and wars with France. Each monarch, from Charles II to George III, put their portrait on the guinea, using it to project an image of stability and power in an ever-changing world. The guinea wasn't just a coin, it was a symbol of a modernizing, confident, and increasingly wealthy nation. Just as the guinea had its day, another coin was waiting in the wings to take its place. This was the sovereign. The story of the sovereign actually begins much earlier, with the Tudors. King Henry VII first introduced a magnificent large gold coin called a sovereign back in 1489. It was a huge statement piece, showing the king enthroned in all his glory, and was worth 20 shillings. But that original sovereign eventually fell out of use. The coin we know today as the sovereign was born much later, in 1817, after the chaos of the Napoleonic Wars. Britain needed to reorganize its money, and it decided to bring back the 20-shilling gold coin, and with it, the name sovereign. This new sovereign of 1817 was a triumph of design and engineering. On one side was the head of the monarch, King George III, but the other side was truly special. It featured a stunning new design by a brilliant Italian artist named Benedetto Pistrucci. It showed St. George on horseback, slaying a dragon. This dramatic, action-packed image became instantly iconic. It was a powerful symbol of good defeating evil, which was very fitting after Britain's long and hard-won victory over Napoleon. This design was so beloved that, with a few exceptions, it has been used on the sovereign ever since. The sovereign was at the heart of a new system called the gold standard. This meant that the value of the British pound was fixed to a specific amount of gold. The sovereign was the physical embodiment of that promise. It weighed a very precise 7.98 grams and contained exactly 0.2354 troy ounces of pure gold. This reliability made the sovereign the most trusted coin in the world. As the British Empire expanded throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, the sovereign travelled with it. It became a truly global currency, used in trade from Sydney to Shanghai, from Cape Town to Calcutta. It was, without a doubt, the king of coins. The Royal Mint did not just make sovereigns in London. To keep up with enormous demand, branch mints were opened across the empire in places like Australia, Canada, South Africa, and India. You can tell where a sovereign was made by a tiny letter, or mint mark, on the coin. This global network meant that the sovereign was everywhere. It was the international currency of its day, just like the US dollar is today. For over a century, this small gold coin was the ultimate symbol of Britain's economic might and its worldwide influence. It was a piece of Britain you could hold in your hand, no matter where you were in the world. Throughout this long and glittering history, gold coins have played several key roles, all at the same time. First and foremost, they were a fantastic way for monarchs to project their power and image. In an age before television or the internet, coins were one of the only ways for most people to know what their king or queen looked like. Every time a new monarch came to the throne, new coins would be issued with their portrait. This was a powerful statement. It announced to the kingdom and to the world who was in charge. The designs, whether it was Edward III in his ship or St. George slaying the dragon, were carefully chosen to send a message about the nation's strength and values. Secondly, gold coins were the engine of high-value trade. While ordinary people used copper and silver for their daily needs, gold was for the big players. Merchants trading silks from China or spices from India needed a reliable, valuable currency that would be accepted internationally. Coins like the noble and the sovereign were perfect for this. Their guaranteed gold content made them trusted across borders, simplifying transactions and helping to build the vast trading networks that made Britain rich. Gold coinage was the lubricant that kept the wheels of international commerce turning smoothly, financing the growth of empire and industry. Thirdly, gold coins have always been a way to store wealth. We call this investment today. Because gold is rare and holds its value, it has always been seen as a safe haven in uncertain times. When wars loomed or the economy looked shaky, people would try to turn their assets into gold coins. They could be hidden or transported easily, a portable form of security. This is why so many hoards of gold coins have been discovered over the years, buried in a field or hidden under floorboards by someone long ago who was trying to protect their life savings. The coins were a personal treasure, a solid and dependable asset when everything else seemed to be falling apart. So you see, gold coins were never just simple pieces of money. They were a complex blend of politics, economics, and personal security. They were a tool for royal propaganda, a facilitator of global trade, and a safe store of value for individuals. They connected the power of the monarch on the throne with the merchant in the bustling port, and the farmer burying his savings for a rainy day. This versatility is what made gold coinage so central to Britain's story for so many centuries. It was the ultimate multitasker, a shining symbol of power, trade, and treasure, all rolled into one. For over a century, the gold sovereign had been a familiar sight in Britain. It was the bedrock of the currency, a solid, dependable coin that people trusted completely. You could walk into any bank and exchange your paper banknotes for their equivalent value in gold sovereigns. This was the gold standard, and it had seemed as permanent as the Bank of England itself. But then, in 1914, the world was plunged into the horror of the First World War. This catastrophic event would change Britain and its money forever. Suddenly, gold was no longer for jangling in people's pockets. It was needed for the war effort. The government needed vast amounts of gold to pay for weapons, supplies, and to secure international loans to fund the war. In a famous campaign, the government asked the public to hand in their sovereigns in exchange for paper money. It was presented as a patriotic duty. Posters declared, "The German is trying to ruin your country. He is trying to starve you. The way to prevent him is to lend your money to your country." People queued up to swap their precious gold coins for banknotes, believing they were helping to win the war. The sovereign, the symbol of Britain's might, was withdrawn from circulation to become part of the nation's war chest. After the war ended in 1918, everyone expected things to go back to normal. They hoped the sovereign would return to circulation and life would resume as it was. Britain did try to return to the gold standard in 1925, but the country was a very different place. It was massively in debt from the war, and its economy was much weaker. The system just could not work in the same way. The country simply did not have enough gold to back all the money in circulation. The experiment was a failure, and in 1931, Britain left the gold standard for good. The era of gold coinage as everyday money was officially over. From that point on, Britain's money became what is known as fiat currency. This means its value comes from the government's promise or decree rather than being backed by a physical commodity like gold. Banknotes and cheaper metal coins became the norm. Gold sovereigns were no longer minted for circulation in Britain after 1932, though some were still made at branch mints for a few more years. For the first time in centuries, the pockets and purses of the British people were empty of gold. The golden journey of everyday currency had come to an end, not with a whimper, but with the thunderous roar of a world war. So, if gold coins are no longer in our pockets, does that mean their story is over? Absolutely not. The story has just entered a new and fascinating chapter. Today, gold coins are more popular than ever, but for very different reasons. They are no longer used to buy groceries, but are instead highly sought after by two main groups of people: collectors and investors. Collectors, who are often called numismatists, love coins for their history and beauty. They hunt for rare dates, special editions, and coins with interesting stories, like the angel used for the royal touch or an original Edward III noble. For them, each coin is a miniature historical artifact, a tangible link to the past. For investors, gold coins represent something else: security. Just as people did in the past, many today buy gold as a way to protect their wealth. In a world of fluctuating stock markets and economic uncertainty, gold is seen as a stable and reliable asset. It's a physical treasure that you can hold in your hand, independent of banks or governments. The Royal Mint, which has been making Britain's coins for over 1,100 years, now produces a whole range of gold bullion coins specifically for this market. The most famous of these is, of course, the sovereign. It is still minted every year to the exact same weight and purity as it was in 1817. The Royal Mint has also introduced new gold coins for the modern age. The most notable is the Britannia coin, first issued in gold in 1987. It features the iconic figure of Britannia, the female personification of Britain, holding a trident and a shield. The design changes over the years, making it very popular with collectors as well as investors. These modern coins are minted using the latest technology, resulting in incredibly detailed and secure designs that are almost impossible to fake. They combine centuries of tradition with cutting-edge minting techniques. A quick fact: a modern 1-ounce gold Britannia coin contains 31.1 grams of pure gold. The Royal Mint roll today is a wonderful blend of old and new. It continues to be the guardian of Britain's coinage history, preserving ancient skills while also innovating for the future. It produces the everyday coins we use, but it also creates these beautiful gold treasures that connect us to a long and glittering story. So, while you may not find a gold sovereign in your change, Britain's golden journey is far from over. From Roman treasure to a modern-day investment, gold coins remain a powerful symbol of history, beauty, and enduring value, still shining as brightly as ever.